So I have a really interesting finding that I believe can improve the growth of the community. So I was kind of sourcing content and came across a recent interview with Benioff. It's really fascinating. I'll put the link below. But when I used this as a source and then fed it through NotebookLM to create the AI generated podcast, it was pretty interesting. I find that by focusing on startup content, there's always an interesting story that's being told. Every startup has those sorts of characters and those sorts of drama. So that really, I think, will increase the quality of the podcast. But what I noticed is it was still too long. It was about 15 minutes, but it really feels like there's a lot of filler and a lot of content that doesn't need to be there. So what I wanted to do was to edit it down. And so I put this into Gemini, and I'll show what I did here. But I just took the script that came from NotebookLM, and I asked Gemini 2.0 experimental to break it apart and kind of note anything that may create boredom for the listener. Then I just put the script in like this. And what it came up with was actually very good analysis, because it was, in a lot of ways, what I was feeling. So there's a lot of repetitive affirmations and agreement, hyperboles. They use the word "yeah" 41 times in a 15-minute video. And exactly that word is used 15 times. So, they have some suggestions on how to do this, but what I'm primarily interested in is what the problems are. The second problem was rhetorical questions, and I see that a lot in these podcasts. An example of seriously, like which ones, Gemini actually recommends, I'm curious which domains he secured, because in this case they were talking about domains. And this is a common problem we see in AI, where we may have, and you'll particularly see this in bots, chat bots, but you'll have one utterance and you'll have a second utterance, and they're not really connected in any human way. So we're also seeing some of that in NotebookLM. Obviously, they're classifying. They're saying, okay, this utterance is somehow related to the second utterance. I'm going to classify a type of thing, I should say, like which ones. But they're not actually connected in terms of saying which ones. Like, I'm curious about which domains he secured. So there is some weakness in the NotebookLM that we need to try to repair. So that was a good observation that we get from Gemini. Intensifiers and hyperboles, it's all over these podcasts. It's kind of cool at first, sounds very natural, but once you start listening to this over and over, it gets a bit repetitive and monotonous. So that's something we're going to have to fix. And then lack of conflict or contrasting viewpoints. Yeah, absolutely accurate. These two speakers within NotebookLM, they're always in agreement, always saying, oh, tell me more. Oh, that's right. So part of what in our definition of high quality is to have thoughtful conversation. And it's hard to have a thoughtful conversation about content if there is no contrasting viewpoints. So we definitely have to repair that if we're going to be able to consider this high quality content. Now, points 5 and 6 I don't agree with, and I think it's going to require me to update the definition of high quality. The digressions, like in this particular case, it was talking about the atmosphere of Apple in the 1980s. Well, it's really interesting. So by removing that, we kind of flatten and make the content less interesting and less engaging. And lack of clear structure within segments. I tried repairing this within NotebookLM, and it led to kind of a flat chronology. So what it leads me to believe is lack of clear structure could actually help increase the engaging content. So based on that, I'm thinking of actually adding in a part of a criteria of high quality content is that it must be entertaining, and then that will allow us to incorporate digressions and lack of clear structure is actually being part of quality. And because nobody really wants to view boring content, and you're not going to be able to build a community around boring content. So this is going to leave us really with two options. We need to either repair NotebookLM to fix these deficiencies, or we're going to have to create custom scripts to repair the transcripts and then use Google Studio Voices to actually re-record it. A lot more effort on that side, so I'd prefer to avoid it. If it's necessary to meet the quality standards, I'll have to do that. Either way, if basically when I say repair NotebookLM, I mean a custom prompt. They tend to be short. They can only be 500 characters. If I'm able to do that, I'll just post the prompt so you can reproduce it. If not, and I have to do the coding and custom building of this, I'll also include those in GitHub and you can follow along. So that's basically where I'm at right now. So I'm going to have another video specifically on NotebookLM, outlining whether we can repair this and actually use NotebookLM itself to create the content we want. Just subscribe, you'll be able to follow along and see what the next steps are. I'll try to get that video out shortly because I need to get a decision on this, but otherwise I think there is progress. All right, thank you.